My job in the Navy was a recon or special operations independent duty corpsman, which is the NEC Lima 02 Alpha. Um, on a lot of the deployments, I would say, people talk about having black clouds or white clouds. If they're lucky or not, whether they anything happens to them, if they get shot up or IEDs or whatever they think is good or bad. I always told people I had a gray cloud on deployment because something typically always happened to us either on patrol or at a patrol base, but thankfully nothing ever ended up happening too serious to me or those I was with. So that's why I say like incidents happen, but we always ended up being okay. So it was mostly like a gray cloud, as I called it then, but understanding that it was God watching out for me now. Throughout my career, I would come into circumstances where AA was recommended to me. I would go for a couple of times and then I would stop. My last duty station was in California, and I went to an individual that I looked up to as a mentor, and I would go to him almost daily for advice. Anything work related, I sought his knowledge out daily. And after about a year of knowing him, he asked me what was my problem or what was going on in my life. I couldn't seem to focus. And finally, I told him, I said that I was an alcoholic, that I had been, fighting being one for the majority of my career. And the next thing he said was that he had been sober for nearly 14 years and that he was going to AA. It was at that moment that I realized that, God put him in my life for a reason, because, he was probably the only person that I would listen to. He's the person that I listened to about work and about all that stuff. And so, by the grace of God, he was put in my life, and thankfully he told me what worked for him. So I started following his advice. August 2019 was last or first time being sober without a drink, and still going to AA. By this time I was praying daily, asking God for help, but I think there was still kind of doubt in my mind that something could be removed. I thought that I would just have to fight the desire to drink the rest of my life. People talked about in AA that they didn't have the desire anymore, and I didn't believe them. I thought I thought they were lying. I didn't think they were going to happen. I believed that God helped them, but I was just clueless, really, of what God could do. And then almost a year after being sober, they call it like white knuckling sobriety. Not that I had to drink. It was just always in the back of my mind that eventually I'm going to end up drinking someday. So after almost a year, I got down on my knees and I prayed to God, and I begged God to remove the desire. I said that I couldn't do it, that I tried, and people always recommend that you give it to God, and I didn't realize what that meant at the time. But I asked God, I said, you have to take the desire away. I can't do this. And I felt an overwhelming flood of emotions. I had to leave the room because I didn't want anybody to hear me, be upset. And the desire was gone. Then, that night, the next day, that night I cried and went to bed. The next day I got up and the desire was gone. I didn't have any desire to drink, and I haven't since. Still went to AA, still prayed. I still continued doing what I was supposed to be doing, and it just kept working. Matthew 7:8 says, "Ask and it shall be given unto you." So if it's God's will, if you're asking for something to be done, it'll be done. Those are His promises. I wouldn't ask for a Ferrari because it's probably not His will for you to have a Ferrari tomorrow, but it's definitely His will for you or anyone to not have an alcohol problem. So it's definitely in His will to take it away, and He will if you ask Him with your heart. In 2021, I retired from the Navy, and I started working for a well-known nonprofit remotely. Over that time, I recognized and reported some serious unethical and immoral behavior between the majority of the people I worked with, both at the national headquarters and then also just spread out across the country. And it became very concerning and eye-opening as well, and probably led to where I'm at today. After towards the end of that position, which was over in January of 2023, I started researching a lot about federal contracts. I started to look into a myriad of things, as some retired people do have time on their hands, and they start to do research, as lack of better terms. That research kind of led me into a path of learning about archaeology, space. I've always been fascinated with space. I had the Spot the International Space Station app on my phone. My kids and I used to go outside, in California, like 2017, 18, and even 19, and try to spot the ISS, and whoever spot it first, would win or whatever. I watched Interstellar probably, a few dozen times to say the least, as well as any other, NASA movie that, or any other movie that, has been put out about space. And a lot of that, kind of led me into looking into archaeology and quantum physics, and all those things, wanted me to start researching archaeology more. So in September of 22, I started to applying for schools, and was turned down. I was talking to deans of the departments, and they were saying, I had good education and experience, but they're looking for people who could teach archaeology a specific way, so that I probably wasn't a good candidate for that. Not understanding, what all that meant. I kept on, reading, finishing up my position at the nonprofit, and trying to figure out what I could do. One of the aspects of my job is that I can teach what I did previously to people who are getting ready to deploy. So we hired as contractors to teach tactical medicine to deploying units, and with that, kind of gives me extra time on my hands to research government contracting. Some of those contracts, led me to asking for discernment from the Lord. So on February 2nd of 2023, all the things that I had experienced in my life and all the things that I had been researching over the last year kind of came to a head, and I, kind of got down on my knees like I did in 2020 when I asked God to remove the alcoholism, and I, prayed to God and asked for discernment. I said, I have a lot of confusion going on, and I need to know. In that instant, I realized what baptism by the Holy Spirit was. I don't want to get into it, or it's hard to explain the feelings now, but I just knew that I knew in that instant that the Bible was the truth, that it was real, that all the stories in there were literally real, just as the hands that I can see in front of my face. That's how real I knew it was. I didn't know how God created the earth in 6 days. I didn't know how Noah built an ark. I didn't know how Moses parted the sea. I didn't know how Jonah stayed in a whale. For 3 days. I didn't know how Jesus rose from the dead. I just knew that it all happened. And I just knew that it was true in an instant. And I just knew that I was told that I had to tell everyone now. So it was a pretty overwhelming experience, and had a lot of confusion. I knew that my desire to seek or to learn more about archaeology was directly tied to all the things I had been researching, and especially the Bible. There's a lot of podcasts and stuff today. People are talking about a lot of artifacts that are being uncovered that aren't likely what we had thought previously, or was taught in school previously. And so all these things led to a lot of questions that I wanted answered. And I feel on February 2nd I got those answered. So I switched applying for archaeology programs and applied to theology programs. I wanted to study the Bible full time. I knew that I was told that I was, had to tell everyone, and I just knew that I wanted to know the Bible, enough to teach or to be qualified. And I just knew I needed to read the Bible. So on probably February 4th, downloaded the Bible. I had a few of them handed to me over the years, just never picked them up or really read them. So I downloaded one and I started reading. In Matthew 10:34-39, do not think to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set man against father, and daughter against her mother, and daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will be those of his own household. Had I not read that, going through a second divorce would have been a complete shock for me. But reading that just shed light to a lot of things. Reading the Bible has opened my eyes to a lot of things, and has pretty much laid out the last year of my life. I've had peace where you would not understand how, and I'll talk about that definitely more in the future. But it's unbelievable the changes that God can do, and that He will do. Just from reading and being faithful. So in March, I thought I was supposed to be making YouTubes about God and teaching people, what I had learned. But I doubted myself. I always thought, I was like, I probably need to go to school first, or read the Bible first, or finish the Bible, or read it a few times before I'm qualified, or how do I get qualified? I don't even know how I'm supposed to be qualified. I've been told by friends that I need to read it all, and I need to be given this knowledge from like senior pastors in churches, passed down from generation. And I come after reading the Bible, I find out that that's just not true at all. It's actually the opposite of what you're supposed to do. Getting to start to learn about the Bible in college, I thought was going to be exciting, and it is. It affords me more time and resources to learning about God, so that's cool. But I've also found, and I've heard that